Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour. I'm your host, Matthew Hawkins, along with my co-host, Ed Carbajal, and on a weekly basis, we plan to bring you the biggest news and interviews in the world of combat sports. Ed, busy couple weeks ahead of us. How you doing, my man?
Good, man. I mean, it's exhausting, but it's exhausting, but it excites me too. So I know you feel the same.
Oh yeah, I mean when it's going good, it's going good. Obviously, upcoming, we've got some exciting events with Bellator and UFC, and we're coming off some UFC event last weekend, as well as a pretty exciting EBI card.
Yeah, you were at the EBI event, so you're gonna have to fill me in because I'm so behind being busy with all the stuff I was taking care of on the East Coast. I missed EBI, so I still have to watch that. But for you, what time was that UFC Singapore card for you?
The prelims started at 1:30. I didn't wake up at 1:30. I woke up at 3:30. I got it going 3:30 with the ONE FC card. So I had a busy, gosh, what was that, Saturday morning? Saturday or Sunday morning?
I saw you put the pictures up. Yeah, the two monitors. Yeah, nice.
So yeah, those fights turned out pretty well. The Jessica Clark fight was fun. Jessica was able to squeak out a close decision in that bout, moving her to another win at the 125-pound weight class, her original weight class. So she was extremely excited about that, and she's a competitor at that weight, I think.
Yeah, I only for the UFC Singapore, I only woke up to watch the main event. My phone woke me up because the main event was starting. So I just watched that, had my coffee, and I went off to training myself. But I mean, that fight, I mean, I wrote about Leon Edwards at MMA News because it seemed like he had been making that comment about trying to push Cerrone into being a retired old man all week, and that fight eventually went the way that he didn't get a finish, but he got the decision on that. So I was kind of like, I don't know. I was kind of hoping for Cerrone to win. Obviously, I always root for the older school fighter, but I was impressed. I was impressed with Leon Edwards.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fight left a little bit to be desired from what we kind of expected going into it. I thought Edwards pretty much won the early part of the fight. Cerrone turned it around. Probably took it was close. I think he took the third and the fourth, and I thought the fifth was really, really a close round. It was one of those fights where I would have scored it a draw personally. I didn't think anybody really won the fight. I didn't think anybody really lost the fight. And even going by the standard scoring rules, I could have reasoned a draw, I think.
Yeah, I mean, these guys that get going, and guys and girls that get going in later rounds, like they like to drag it into deep waters. I think that can, as their careers advance, I think that can be a detriment to the fight. And just because Joanna, former champion, comes to mind. She's somebody that turns it on in like rounds 3, 4, and 5 when she's fighting. But if you never get there, then it's not going to happen. That's how Rose took it to her in those first 2 fights. And then Cerrone's the same way. He kind of he didn't really turn it up until the end of the fight. And they do 5 rounders for main events, even though there's no title. So sometimes you got to rethink that stuff. Actually, I just wrote something today. I don't know if you read that article on Stephen Thompson where he said he's rethinking his whole strategy just because of the way things have been going now that he's at the top of the food chain over there.
I saw that. Yeah, I mean, I think he's going to have to change his strategy up with the unified rules. I think you have to be more aggressive now. And he's lost a couple close fights. His first fight was Woodley, which was a draw. I mean, he was a round away from being a little more aggressive from taking the title. And then his fight with Till, which was also really close, where he just needed a little bit more. So I definitely think that would favor his style if he were able to just turn it up a notch.
Yeah, but I mean, I know we're going off topic with that just because it came to mind thinking about the Edwards and Cerrone fight. But the thing about it is, I mean, the classic competition obviously at that level gets so high. Like I sometimes think fans are a little too harsh on the fighting smart. I know it's not the most entertaining thing, but like I actually wrote about like the Woodley Maya thing and the Woodley and Kamaru Usman making that comment I think I wrote it over at SureDog, I believe, where like sometimes it's not the most aggressive and entertaining thing, but when you think about it, I mean, they are trying to win, they are trying to hold on to their titles or move up somehow. So sometimes you got to find the smartest way to do it. It might not be the most entertaining way, but you know, I don't know. I just think that's something that fans need to think about. Like, you know, these guys are putting their bodies on the line for our entertainment, and sometimes some of those injuries could be like lifelong.
There's definitely a fine line between that. I mean, nobody wants to see anybody get maimed, but they are in the sport of entertainment, you know, in a sense. So,
what's the name of that guy that fought Hickson in choke? It's a Yuki Nakai.
Yuki Nakai, yeah, he
like blind,
he was blinded, I think, in the first round of that tournament by Gerard Gordeau, UFC 1 competitor, with an eye gouge. And he won. I think he won the semifinal. I think is when he fought Hickson.
Then, but he probably made like $2,000 for that fight. You know what I mean? And it's like, you know, like you and I know about it because we've been following the sport for since its inception or whatever. But it's just like, you know, a lot of like these new like I think you mentioned it, like the McGregor fan base is like the newer guys. They don't even know about that. And they're those are the ones that are crying for blood, and I don't know. I just think I think it's not worth it. Sometimes you have to take that into consideration before you criticize them.
Well, that was due to an illegal strike. I mean, even at the time, it was a, you know, Gordeau was known kind of as a cheap fighter. Now that was in the Vale Tudo days, so it wasn't the same level of being cheap. You had a lot more leverage as far as what you could get away with. But yeah, I mean, we don't want to see anybody get maimed, like I said, and career or lifelong injuries are obviously terrible. But you know, when you get up to the top level, when you're fighting for a UFC title, to me, you got to lay it on the line. There's thousands of fans paying for it, tickets. There's, you know, a million or hundreds of thousands, million people paying $65 a thing or a view to watch it. So, yeah, you know, like I said, it's a fine line. As a paying fan, you want to see them put everything they got out there, but like you said, you don't want to see any.
Yeah, you also as a paying fan, you also want to see him fight again too, if you're a true fan. So I don't know, it's a double-edged sword, but
that's true. But you always bring up UFC 208. There was a lot of dancing going on that night.
Forget that. I'm trying to forget it, but it's funny. I mentioned it to who did I just mention that to? Because I mean, I know we're gonna get to all the Bellator stuff. When I was in New York, I said that to somebody about because somebody had asked Coker, "Are you coming back to New York City?" And he seemed focused on Madison Square Garden. I think somebody asked about Nassau Coliseum or something, and he was just like, "I want to come to the Garden." But you know, obviously, I mean, the Garden's obviously in high demand, and I guess the only reason they're not coming when we thought they would is because it was there's no availability because it looked like they were booked out. So he said something around the end of this year or the beginning of next year, but Madison Square Garden is where he wants it to be, from the way he answered. If you guys missed that press conference, by the way, Sporting News streamed the whole thing, and I think it's still up. I tweeted it, so if you check out my Twitter profile, or Sporting News' Periscope, because they streamed it on Periscope, so you can see the whole press conference there, where he addressed that and a bunch of other things. But that was obviously in the middle of the week. You started your week with submission grappling. How was that EBI event?
The event itself was outstanding. It was the bantamweight women 16-woman tournament and a couple combat jiu-jitsu matches, including Richie Martinez defending his championship in that.
Were the up kicks allowed in that one?
You know, I'm not sure. I wasn't able to be a part of the rules meeting, and they weren't. It was never an issue. I don't recall a single up kick being thrown, or
so no one threw any. That's why I haven't seen it yet, and I know they said that Eddie Bravo had approved it as a thumbs up that the people could do that, but I didn't know if anyone was going to be trying. That's a pretty rough kick to throw in a grappling match.
Yeah, I mean the first combat jiu-jitsu match was PJ Barch, I'm sorry, and he fought Mikey Gonzalez, and Barch won by Kimura 2.5 minutes into the fight or into the match, and there wasn't even a single slap thrown. So it was basically just a standard EBI match. which, you know, I think I said it on the show before. I've told other people that I actually prefer the standard EBI to the combat. Now, Richie Martinez's match with Bobby Emmons was incredible. Actually, Emmons took him down and held a side control for about the first, you know, I don't know the exact time, but it was probably the first 4 or 5 minutes of the match. Kind of trying to work side chokes. Didn't really have Martinez ever in any danger, but seemed like he kind of got a little tired, and Martinez was able to escape. Took his back and eventually worked the Darce choke, the exact same choke that he won the title with in his previous bout. So
it's a nice choke.
Yeah, it seems to be his specialty, and he had a huge following in the crowd. So everybody there was really loving seeing that. You know, he's an exciting guy to watch. I don't know if he's got any aspirations for MMA. I honestly don't even know how old he is. But when it comes to, you know, submission grappling, and I've seen him in Metamoris, I've seen him a couple times in EBI. I'd say he's easily one of the top 5-10 competitors I've ever seen as far as entertainment.
Yeah, and he's part of that squad that's going to Quintet too for the next Quintet, the big Quintet event in Tokyo. So he's on that Eddie Bravo team.
Really?
Yeah, he's on that team. Both Martinez brothers are on the team, and some heavyweight. I forget the names, but I actually had the articles up at My MMA News where the list is, and there's a promo video that Eddie Bravo did where he talks some trash. I mean, that I really like. I'm looking forward to seeing their team and how they do against the teams at Quintet, because I don't know if you watch any of the Quintet stuff, but the teams they got there, that team Carp Diem, I hadn't heard of any of those guys. They're all rolling the gi regularly, and they won that last fight night event. So I'm excited, looking forward to their next. They had some sick back takes that I was just like, I actually have rewatched some of the matches a few times because I'm trying to figure them out.
I didn't catch a lot of the second one. I don't remember, something came up, or it was the same night as another event. Something happened, but the first show I thought was outstanding. That was the team from Poland won that one, right?
Polaris, yeah.
Or Team Polaris, yeah, with Martin Hell and a few of the other big guys from the Polaris organization. Yeah, but other than the combat grappling or the combat jiu-jitsu, the actual women's tournament was. You know, I didn't know a lot of the women going into it. I knew Mayo from Bellator, Brooke Mayo. She actually lost her opening bout in overtime by RNC. But the number 1 seed of that tournament, Beatrice Mesquita from Gracie Humata, she was incredible. She put on a show that was outstanding. She submitted her first 3 opponents by armbar, and then you get $5,000 per finish in regulation. So she got up to 15,000, got to the final where she met what was her name? Bianca Basilio. Who had also finished. She finished her first 3 opponents in about a matter of about 2 minutes total time, with heel hooks, and I mean it was like a clash of the titans getting to the final. And in the final, Beatrice in overtime got to start from the you can help me out with the wording, but the armbar, not the seatbelt, but the spiderweb position.
Yeah,
and was able to, and submitted her in 4 seconds.
That's nice, man. You know what's nice about the thing is, especially in those types of competitions, submission only, no gi. When you see submissions that aren't some type of leg lock, so when you see chokes and arm bars like that, it's always, that's what makes guys like Martinez and her obviously stand out, because everyone, and I think we talked about this when we had Ray Robles on a couple episodes back. Like the leg lock thing, it's addictive because you can get quick taps out of it. A lot of times people get lost in the scramble and will even turn into the submission themselves. But when you see stuff that's arm bars and chokes and things that are not as popular, it's always memorable to watch. And I think that's what makes a lot of matches cool. Again, that's why I like those Carp Diem team at Quintet, because actually they had a couple of leg lockers on I forget the name of the team. Was it Haleo? One of the team was Haleo, which is Sakuraba's team, but it was all lighter guys because they did a weight class for it. And
is that with Imanari and
yeah, and what's his name? The guy from that fought in Bellator against
Takoro?
Yeah, Takoro. And they tried leg locks and all that stuff, and these guys escaped them, took their backs, and actually the subs that happened were chokes. So that's why it's so memorable to me. So I'm not surprised that you remember her because of her armbar finishes in something like EBI. So it shows that their jiu-jitsu is a little more solid if they can escape, if they not only if they can avoid those leg lock submissions, but if they can lock in something old school like an armbar.
I mean, there was a couple like heel hooks and you know, kind of your regular leg locks, but they were usually really well fought, and the person who ended up winning usually was kind of reversed it on the other one who initiated the leg game. But one of them was also a toe hold, and one of them was a calf slicer. So it wasn't your standard, you know, diving in for heel hooks and
no,
know.
I mean, the setups can become from anywhere. That's the thing. There's people that are very tricky with them. Some people will drag your leg into, you know, there's a lot of setups for all the moves you just mentioned that you won't even see. I mean, you know, a lot of them, there's calf slicers that can come when you think you're passing the guard, and all of a sudden you feel pressure on your calf and you're like, oh, Jesus, I'm in something. I got put in a toe hold last Friday, and I was in the turtle position. So I was just like, from some guy that's he's addicted to leg locks that I train with now. So it's like, you know, it's definitely hard to ignore and hard to avoid.
Yeah, I know they have. You know, of course, being a huge MMA fan, when I go to these, I'm always kind of curious how these competitors would transition into MMA. Eddie Bravo does same day weigh-ins, so you know the girls naturally look smaller than your 135 pound female MMA competitor. So we might be dealing with even some flyweights or some straw weights. But I mean, Mosquita physically, she was, I'd say, stronger than almost all the other competitors. Like I said, her submission and just her composure was incredible for what I've seen. You know, I mean, I saw Gordon Ryan, I saw Gary Tonin. I've seen those guys just dominate EBI, and I walked away from this event watching her and thinking, you know, the same thing when I left watching those guys, that, you know, you know, when you see somebody who seems like a special athlete, or as we talked about, I think last week, or one of the previous guests about, you know, just people that are real special at their art.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way I walked away feeling about seeing her compete. She was like almost on another level. So it was really cool to see that. It was a real small, intimate venue. You know, if I was guessing, I'd say 250 to 300 seats.
Where was it?
It was at the San Diego Performing Arts Center.
Oh, because I know he usually does that Orpheum Theater.
Yeah,
place, right?
I actually prefer the theater. My only critique for the event would be that, you know, it was basically 4 or 5 rows, and the mat was on the floor. So if you weren't in the first row, you were pretty much, it was standing to see all the action. So there was a lot of, you know, blocked views, and, you know, it wasn't the most fan-friendly event, but like I said, it was a small, intimate venue, so you kind of felt like you were a part of it. But the action made up for it more than anything. You know,
sounds like it.
Yeah, but I definitely, like you mentioned, the Orpheum Theater. That's one of the. I think that's a great venue for something like this, because you have the theater seating. Yeah,
well, I mean, I think Joe Rogan said it on his podcast once, for combat sports especially. I think it holds true. The best seat in the house for viewing anything related to combat sports is home. You know, with all the camera angles. Even when I'm at I'm covering that PFL event next week, but usually when I'm watching the events, people are like, "Oh, you got the best seat in the house." But I always find myself turning to find the monitor that all the fans watch in the arena, especially when things go to the ground. Like you said, people in the way. I think that it's just unavoidable no matter where you are, especially the closer you are. I mean, it's just something about being in an arena, and that you get that crowd high being with everybody else. You know?
Well, in MMA, I mean, I can't argue that. Obviously, I love to attend events and the atmosphere, and, you know, that's what I'm all about. But you know, when these big submission grappling events like Metamoris, the fan, I know they had their issues, you know, financially and all their stuff behind the scenes. But as far as a fan experience, that was one of the coolest, you know, events I'd ever attended. The raised mat, you were, you know, feet from the competitors as they were competing, and that's how this Eddie Bravo event was as well. But like I said, if it would have been a raised mat, it would have been a top 10, you know, fan experience event, just being such a small area with such great matches and talented competitors. So, I mean, my only beef there would be, like I said, just, you know, put a ring in the middle of the place with the, you know, pull the ropes off of it and put a mat, and you had the event of the year basically. So I thought it was outstanding. I'll definitely be attending again and hopefully be able to cover many more other events in the future.
Yeah, no, I definitely like that setup. The raised mat setup, I was sold on that when like Fight to Pro does that a lot. If you watch him on Flow Grappling, you saw Benson Henderson had his thing with AJ Agzaram. They fell off the platform. They did a gi match recently. I don't know if you saw that, but that's one of the dangers of a raised platform. But there's just something cool about it, like you said, for viewing, whether you're there or at home watching on some streaming service. But speaking of streaming services, Bellator looks like they fixed their tape delay issue for all of us fight fans with the partnership they did with DAZN. That's how that's supposed to be pronounced, just so you know. That DAZN.
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be DAZN for quite a while, I think.
Yeah.
You know, obviously both of us are huge Bellator fans. I have mixed feelings on this. It all comes down to the price point for me.
Yeah.
You know, I've told people, you know, I attend 3, 4, 5 live shows a year. I don't miss a broadcast. But if you start asking me to pay $20 a month for one day out of that month being a Bellator event, you know, I don't know what other sports are on this streaming service, but I don't have interest in watching soccer or you know, F1, you know, Formula racing or horse racing or anything like that. So unless I can get the Lakers, the Angels and Bellator, there's not a whole lot it's gonna have to be reasonably priced.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, they're gonna do the same pitch that everyone else does. You get that month free trial. They're gonna do the month of McDonald and Musasi. So they're gonna snatch us all with that. And then you know, after that, whatever the price point is, supposedly all their information will be out in July and August. If you saw, actually the video is on the Blogboard Jungle YouTube channel. I spoke with the CEO of the company they partnered with. He's the one that helped me correctly pronounce it and explain to me because nobody had ever heard of it obviously before this week, and now you keep seeing those 4 letters everywhere since Tuesday because of the partnership. It was a 9-figure deal that they did with Paramount, or with Bellator rather. They said they used the word simulcast, so I'm assuming that means you don't have to have it, but there's 7 events that are exclusive to the DAZN app, and those 7 events I'm assuming are going to be those, you know, Italy and all those tape delay cards that we have to wait for. So I don't know.
Yeah, I guess that's the question, because I did see that most of the tentpole events were still going to be on Paramount Network, which is good. But at the same time, I don't, you know, other than it being some of the British or London cards where they've been stacked in the past for Bellator, you know, some of the Irish events and stuff like that, I just don't know if that's worth $20. You know, at least, I mean, maybe me and you will pay for it, but I don't see a lot of the casual fans forking out that money for it.
I mean, so here's my problem, which, you know, I'm pretty sure I've bitched about it on this podcast before, because so I have horrible Comcast, and over the years they've removed from me, you know, I've lost channels. I lost Viceland, I lost Spike/Paramount in 2016. So for me, I'm just like, I have to go to a bar like it's a damn pay-per-view to watch a Bellator. Like, you're gonna be at 201 this Friday, but I'll be at Tilted Kilt, you know. And so if by the end of the night and the end of the event, when I look at my tab, I mean, if I'm saving that a month versus $20 a month or whatever it is, I'm thinking it might be worth it for me. But I don't think they'll do $20 a month either, though. I feel like because they're gonna look at everybody else out there, and you know, like you look at WWE, what they're $15 a month.
They're
UFC,
$9.99 for
oh, so there you go. So people, I feel like they're gonna do like that $5-10 a month, or maybe $8 a month, something around that range, because they don't want to they don't want to do overkill. I know they mentioned Matchroom Boxing a lot, which is, I guess, if you're a boxing fan and you want to watch boxing stuff, that's going to be part of it, because they said every week they're going to do fights, or they said every Friday. I forget if he specified the day or not at the press conference, but they're definitely trying to have like fights all the time, like, or have a fight night every week. So the nights that it's not Bellator, it's going to be Matchroom Boxing. So I don't think that's a big combo of a fan. Like I write for a site that tries to do that, and the fan base, it's like they argue with each other half the time. You know what I mean? Like boxing fans seem to hate on MMA and vice versa. So I don't know if that's a smart move either. But the sport is starting to get expensive for us, man. I don't know about you.
Yeah, well, it's always been expensive, and I think if they put boxing on there, I think that's good, because at least it's a combat sports. Like I used to be a huge boxing fan. I'm kind of getting more into it now with some of the names that are rising to the top. But for me, if they're going to charge $15-20, for me, they got to have, like, I believe it's live in Japan. They need to have like K1 on it. You need to have maybe the bare knuckle boxing. You need to have You need to have 3 or 4 organizations that have an event every 6 weeks on there for it to pay off for me. I mean, I get the events. I have Sling TV, the streaming service, so I get Paramount Network.
Yeah, I thought about doing that myself, actually, so I can stop leaving my house.
And that's, I basically pay $50. I get the channels I need for all the fights, and it has a DVR. So that works for me. I mentioned it on the MMAcommunity.com. I think that if there was a way of going about it, I think Bellator should just have a $5 a la carte. You get that fight. It's almost like a $5 pay-per-view on DAZN just to get that event. You don't pay for the other 29 days, but you pay $5 to watch whatever card might be specific to that service. But I don't know. I mean, if it puts money in Bellator's pocket and it keeps them going and get some and get some notoriety in the world, then I'm all for it. I just the first fight being the Musashi McDonald fight, I fear we're going to end up reading that they got 20,000 views.
I mean, they're a global property, though. I know they're really big, like outside of the U.S. They're new to us, but they're not new to everyone else. So I did some research on them since that press conference, and since speaking to Mr. Rushton, who's the CEO of it that I interviewed. So they haven't even set up all their like social media stuff for it in the U.S. But if you look them up, they have one for every country that they're in, and they have a huge. They seem to have bank and a huge following. I mean, if they were able to afford a 9-figure deal with Bellator, and they're confident in the traffic it'll bring in. I mean, he said they're going to focus on that, obviously, because it's new, and this is new territory for them. I think it's going to be the U.S. and Germany that they're launching with this year. So, if they might not do the numbers with us, but overseas they probably can make up for it. So we'll see. I mean, like that's probably why they haven't mentioned the price point yet or any other numbers that we've heard about, because they have to gauge it. And that's one thing he said to me when I spoke to him. He said once they set up the social media channels, they're going to do a lot of social listening. Because the thing I asked him about, just to bring it back to what we were talking about, I asked him, are you planning on doing regional MMA, submission only grappling events? Are you planning on adding that? Because he said that he wanted to make DAZN the top streaming service for fight fans, and there's already competition out there. So if they're looking at only big brands, there's really no big brand submission only grappling, or I guess regional MMA. Access has the lock on that with all LFA and CES. And then what's the thing out by you? Is it MAV TV that does King of the Cage?
Yes. Yeah. MAV TV has King of the Cage, but that's only once every 3 months or something. They have a live event.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I said, I hope it all works out. I just it just concerns me because I know I have a lot of friends and stuff who won't even pay for Fight Pass, and that's for the UFC, which is obviously the top of the food chain promotion as far as most fans are concerned. So, unless it's a really good price, and I don't know. Even my thing is, most of the people or a lot of people that I've met over the years that watch Bellator are people that get home on a Friday night and just turn their TV on and just happen to come across it. So yeah. It's already complicated enough to be a fan of the sport as far as, UFC, you got about 4 different channels you got to switch to watch it. Yeah. 5, I guess, if you count both Fox Sports and Fight Pass and Fox, Big Fox and pay-per-view and, Bellator, I don't know. They got to do what they got to do as a company to keep everything going. And they got the big fight announced coming up for September and still waiting on the news for the heavyweight Grand Prix. But, it's one of those things. We'll see how it goes. I won't miss the fights. You won't miss the fights. And like you said, worldwide, they might make up big numbers, but when it all comes down to it, the U.S. viewing is what's gonna make or break that company. So we'll see what happens.
I think that one thing that was funny, it's funny we're talking about the cost and everything because actually it was on today. The MMA beat also mentioned the thing too because they were forgetting about, if you're looking at the grand scope of the sport, not just Bellator. Because the thing in 2019, obviously, that with all those things, the Fox options you mentioned are gone. It's all ESPN. But still, if you want those exclusive ESPN Fight Night cards, you have to buy ESPN Plus, which I think is another $5 to $7 a month. So it's like if all these fights that we want to catch all the fights, it's like you got to pay for like 4 or 5 streaming services, and I'm kind of like I don't want to sign up for anything else. I mean, actually, I was arguing with myself today when I was listening to that. I'm like, because I really like Bellator. I'm obviously willing to leave my house to go catch their events because I don't have the channel. I go to a bar that'll put it on for me. I got a really nice hookup actually at the Tilted Kilt that I go to. So I'm just like, oh God, like, do I really want to do it? Like, I live in Jersey. It gets cold here. I don't always want to go outside. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I guess we got to see how it plays out between this last quarter of the year and then the first quarter of 2019. I don't know. I don't got money like that though.
Yeah, I mean, my thing is, the ESPN Plus is supposed to be $4.99. If they allow a combination with Fight Pass, and Fight Pass gives you $5 off, so that stays at basically $10 a month for Fight Pass and ESPN. And if Bellator does something for, $10, $9.99 or less, then that's $20 a month. I can live with that. But, Bellator needs to have their loaded cards on it for $20 a month, in my opinion. You can't have James Gallagher versus somebody I've never heard of and expect me to pay $20 a month for it. I mean, it's just how it is. I mean, a ticket to that event's $30. So I might as well just go to it if it's or one of their smaller ones. But anyways, that's looking a little bit in the future here. This Friday, as you mentioned, I was at the weigh-ins earlier today.
What's up with that fight? Did they announce that right away at the weigh-ins? You went to the weigh-ins in the morning, or you went to the ones that were streamed later?
The actual real weigh-ins were behind the scene. It wasn't open to anybody that I was aware of. Maybe the media, but I didn't see anything for that. I didn't go as a media member, but I showed up. I showed up for the ceremonial weigh-ins, which were 6 hours earlier than they normally have them, or 5 hours earlier. Normally they have them at 4:00, and this time it was like 11:30.
So Paula Ramirez and Christy Lopez are off because Paula came in 10 pounds over, right?
Yeah, and I just heard that from one of the other media members. I heard him asking the commission kind of what was up with it, and the commission said they pulled the fight. They said that there was just too big of a weight discrepancy between the two, and it was per the commission that they wanted to cancel the fight.
What about Couture and Awad? They both made weight. I saw that, right?
Everybody else made weight. I talked to Syed after it, and he said he was feeling great. Said he's got a new nutritionist,
I saw I got a new T-shirt too. What's that about?
Yeah, we got the Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour T-shirts. So on Twitter, anybody can hit me up if they're interested in supporting the podcast. But yeah, no, he said he felt great. He said he hasn't felt this good for a fight ever.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that, man. I mean, it was a pleasure to talk to him. 2 weeks, was that 2 weeks out before this fight? So he said he felt good. He looked like he was ready to go.
Yeah, like I said, I asked him if it was because it was not, he didn't have to cut all the way down to 155 with it being 160-pound catch weight. He said that had nothing to do with it. He said he's been, cutting for the last couple of weeks, and with his new nutritionist, everything's just been going really smooth, and he's just been real comfortable with how everything's been. So he said he felt healthy and ready to knock somebody out. So I look forward to that. That's the co-main event. Alimale McFarland and Alejandra Lara is the main event for the women's 125-pound flyweight championship. Alimale and her weigh-in act is pretty funny. I know she's done some Disney stuff in the past, and I think she had Lilo and Stitch going today with her manager and one of her coaches. So she makes a real fun experience, and it looked like it's going to be a good fight. She's 7-0. I believe Lara's 7-1. So it's two real good female fighters.
Yeah, I mean, and she that's why I felt bad. I kind of felt bad about that one female match getting pulled, because she had just did, I think it was one of the Bellator and Focuses or one of their digital media online pieces, where she had said that she felt really happy about being on a card that had so many female fights that were as part of the as high profile fights. So I'm glad that it doesn't look like she's having fun out there. I mean, it looks like she's having fun out there, as did her. I don't know what was her opponent trying to do. What was her costume about? Was she Poison Ivy or somebody?
I didn't. It never picked up on exactly. I know she's from Colombia, so I just kind of just figured it had something kind of to do with that. I know. I think she had the Colombian. She had a red cross on her face, so I just kind of assumed that's what that was about. But everybody hung around after the weigh-in, so it wasn't like anybody was running to hydrate or, I realized they had weighed in, anywhere from 10 minutes earlier to 2 hours earlier. But usually after a weigh-in, there's not a lot of people being real social. And this one was kind of everybody hanging around, taking some photos.
Yeah, when they weigh in at Mohegan Sun, they're usually out right after, even if it's those ceremonial ones. They're kind of just they come they do it and they leave.
So I mean, the card's really, I think it's going to be an extremely exciting card. Juan Archuleta, I believe he's 18 or 19-1. He was a 3-division champion in King of the Cage. He fights the veteran Robbie Peralta. Christina Williams, who actually beat your girl Heather Hardy in her MMA debut.
Warhorse, yeah, she's good, man. I mean, I slept on her myself for that fight, and I didn't realize. I mean, that's one of those fights. Just really quick about the Heather Hardy thing. I was thinking about it today. That's one of those fights that where head move. It's a good example of why head movement isn't always the greatest thing in MMA.
Yeah, I mean, I know she bloodied her up pretty good in that fight. But she's 2-0 now and seems to be a serious contender. And they're not wasting any time. They're giving her Valerie Letourneau, who once fought for a UFC strawweight title against Joanna. So,
that'll be telling. Yeah, if she wins that, she could start looking at a title fight if she beats a name like that.
Without looking at all the names in that division, I think that's definitely the number one contender bout. Even though Williams has only had 2 pro fights, I believe she beat Ducote maybe in her second fight. She beat Emily Ducote and Heather Hardy, so she's got a couple names already on her resume. And if she beats Letourneau, being on the main card right under Alimale, I think that's the fight that you make.
I mean, she's gonna run into danger though with the higher she goes. Obviously, the grapplers that she's gonna face, obviously Alima's got her division locked down, at somebody at a level like that, because I think she's only a blue belt. I know she spoke with James Linton. She mentioned it. So she's obviously, she's probably got good defense, but against a higher level grappler, she might be in trouble. But she does a good job of staying away from the ground. So
yeah, she's got good length. She's
yeah.
she's a tall, bigger 125 pounder. So she can keep her distance, and Dakota took her down, if I recall, a few times, and she was able to fight that off. So I don't know. It's one of those things. You got some of there's people talk about some of the old guys in Bellator, but there's definitely that about 20 big up and coming youngsters that are going to make a name for themselves in the sport. And even if she doesn't win the title immediately, I don't think she's going anywhere for the next 5 years. I think
that welterweight thing you were talking about on up and comers. One of the names that came up as being invited to it on Tuesday at the press conference, Coker said was going to be Ed Ruth. So I was surprised because he's relatively new to the sport, but he's willing to throw him in a tournament. I mean, that's an even playing field. That's what makes tournaments fun, though. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, he's fighting Friday as well. That's the if Bellator fans need to tune in early to the Bellator app for the prelims. The first 3 prelims feature Tyrell Fortune, Joey Davis, and Ed Ruth. And Kerry Melendez is also on the early prelims. So you've got some names and some up and coming, possible stars in their weight classes.
I feel like maybe obviously with the thing, the press conference on Tuesday was focused on the streaming thing and the welterweight fight with Mousasi and McDonald and Rampage and Wanderlei. But you were asking about the heavyweight Grand Prix. I feel like because they danced away from it or never brought it up, and we were all distracted with these other, welterweight Grand Prix news and the zone and all that stuff. I have a feeling maybe the announcement you're looking for is going to be on during the broadcast this Friday.
I hope so. The thing about having a Grand Prix that is not one night is that you always have risk it going on for way too long.
One thing really, I actually messaged him earlier today when I was at that presser on Tuesday. Remember Nolan King was on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and he said that there would be back around our way, me and Nolan King's way, the Northeast region in October, and I had that confirmed by an executive when I was there on Tuesday. All I said was, I hear I'm going to see you in October, and he was like, yes, sir. And we shook hands, and that was it. But I was just like, all right, that's confirmation of what Nolan said. So as far as to when, I'm not sure exactly when, but it's probably going to be Mohegan Sun. It's probably going to be something. I don't know if it's going to be a tournament fight, but I guess we'll see. I have a feeling we're going to hear what you were looking to hear on Friday.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you think that they would do a Fedor fight at Mohegan Sun?
I mean, Mitra and Roy Nelson were pretty big names, and they brought them to Mohegan Sun. I don't see why not. And I do know that Chael, he does work for ESPN, which is in Connecticut. So it wouldn't be too far fetched to keep him near everything that's comfortable for him, And Fedor is just, he's just a Russian beast, so he doesn't care where he fights.
Yeah, no, I get that. I just it seems to me like you would do that in a more. I've never been to the Mohegan Sun, so I don't know what the status is exactly of the the population around there and stuff. I know it's a nice place from what I've heard, but
yeah, it's nice, but it's creepy outside of the casino. Like I said when we were talking to Awad, because I feel like Awad. Like I said, when Awad was on the podcast, I actually thought he was from that area, and you were the one when you set up the interview with him. That's how I found out he was a West Coaster. I was like, holy cow. I thought he lived in Connecticut with all these other creeps.
Yeah, but I'm just surprised that the heavyweight announcements have taken as long as they have. I don't know of any injuries that happened. That's what's kind of thrown me off more than anything. If we would have had some injuries, I wouldn't have been so surprised by it. But considering how the fights went with, you had quick finishes by Bader and Fedor. I don't think Mitrione took much damage. And then you had, I don't think, other than Chael just kind of saying he was tired or a little bit beat up after the fight, but that was in January.
Yeah, he's had time. He should be ready to go.
I just figured that they would have announced that and we'd be trying to wrap that up in December or January. Or
they did say end of the year, so we're coming on it.
But that's where we end up. This is where we run into the problem, though, because if they have it in October, it's not happening in December. And if one of those, if let's say Fedor wins but breaks his hand, do they do they bring in Chet Congo to replace Fedor in January, or do we see this fight going down next May with Fedor?
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, I don't like to this isn't an international fight week we're talking here. You know, you don't got to worry about something bad happening. And I know you're going to be at that one too. So, if we lose some big fight, we know it won't be your fault. But, just that week is just cursed. So
yeah, we lost Yancy Medeiros today in his fight with Mike Perry. So I've heard rumors of Paul Felder stepping in with James Vick moving up to fight Justin Gaethje in Nebraska in August. So.
They got to do something for that dude because it's like I don't think he's fought yet this year.
Well, if he's willing to go up to 170 to fight a beast like Mike Perry, then you let that man do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, if he wants to do that, to me, that's what it's all about. But, you know, you mentioned the fight week card.
Did you hear the press conference? It was on or finishing just before we started this. I don't know if you had a chance to hear it.
No, I actually didn't know that was going down. But
it was a conference call, but it was they had Max Holloway, Brian Ortega, obviously the co-main and main event they had, and DC and Miocic.
What do you think happens in that main event? You talk about Daniel Cormier and Stipe Miocic.
I mean, you have to talk. I was actually talking about it over the weekend with someone else. I mean, this is where if I'm looking at it objectively, I see Miocic winning, but I would like it if Daniel Cormier won. And the thing about Daniel Cormier is he actually said something today that he changed my mind a little bit, and I wouldn't be surprised, if the odds changed in his favor a little bit after what he said. And the thing that stood out was during that conference call, he said that he feels better than he felt in a while or something to that effect because he doesn't have to cut weight. You know, we forget that he used to fight at heavyweight in Strikeforce and stuff, and he did that heavyweight tournament, and then he went down to light heavyweight for the UFC. But heavyweights that's his world, and I think people are forgetting that, which is why he's the underdog in the fight. But now I don't think so as much. I mean, that was a nice reminder to hear that he's ready to go. I mean, I know Miocic doesn't like being counted out, but he's actually, like I said, objectively, I see Miocic winning this, but I really would like it if DC won this and said I'm done fighting, then he's done all he has to do in MMA as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean you're kind of in the same boat as me. Then I'm pulling for Cormier. You know, I've been a Cormier fan since I first saw him fight Tony Johnson. I think it was in King of the Cage or in an Australian event back in the day. But and I met him at an early Strikeforce event. But yeah, I don't know about size. I know he's a heavyweight, but Miocic is a legit badass. I don't know how else to really say it. So, I think Miocic will probably win if the fight goes on some time. I don't think Cormier will be able to lay, to hold him down. I think we're going to end up with a stand-up fight, and I think over 20 minutes or so, I think Miocic might be able just to land the harder shot.
Yeah. And I think in that aspect, Miocic, I'm not sure. I have to check their stats, but I'm pretty sure Miocic has a reach advantage on DC. And the other thing too is I don't know if you've ever tussled with a firefighter before, but those dudes are insanely strong.
Yeah.
I trained with a couple of firefighters in grappling, and I mean, gis are built made for long term, last. I remember my brand new Hayabusa gi, I wrote the first roll with a firefighter with me having it 2 months, and the guy tore it because he was so damn strong. So
yeah, I mean, he's a big dude. I mean, obviously Cormier is strong. We've seen him toss Barnett. We saw him toss Dan Henderson. He went up with Frank Mir and Big Country Nelson. He's 12 or 13-0 at heavyweight. I wonder if Miocic might just be that heavyweight that's just a step above when you get to that size for him. So I don't know, but obviously it sounds like we're kind of both think Miocic might pull it out, but we're kind of going with Cormier. I mean, at least that's where I'm at. So what about the co-main event? Holloway and Ortega. I know we talked about this a week or two ago.
I was gonna say, was it on this podcast that I talked about it where I said I was kind of like all in on Ortega?
I think maybe you were. You know, and
I
I had mentioned that I thought Holloway might just kind of out experience him and squeak out the fight.
Yeah, because I think I just Ortega's I think obviously he cuts a lot. He was talking about that today on the conference call. I mean, he said his weight is good. He's doing the water loading thing, because obviously he was ready to go to fight at 155. So was Holloway, back at 223. But I mean, I think he's big for his weight class, and I feel like with his obviously he surprised us with his striking in the fight with Frankie Edgar, and then I don't know if his grappling. I don't know if Holloway can handle his level of grappling, especially since he's freestyling triangle chokes and stuff that not even his instructors seen before. So
yeah, if it goes down to the ground, if Ortega can get him down to the ground, it obviously is his world and a danger for Max. What about the two big heavyweights, Derek Lewis and Francis Ngannou? How do you? I mean, I think we both know kind of how that's going to go down, but who do you think takes that one?
Well, I have a concern for that one, and I'm not trying to jinx anything, but it is International Fight Week. Derek Lewis has an ongoing back issue, and he mentioned it on Monday that it was bothering him not that long ago, but he felt better at the point of the interview. So that right there has me concerned as a fight that we could lose on International Fight Week, simply because of like I said, because of the history of that week and the history he's had with this issue. Because if you remember, he got pulled from that one fight when it first started. So if the fight happens, though, I think Ngannou wants to remind folks, that he's still a contender. He's probably gonna put his Ford F-150 punch on him, or whatever the hell they said he punches at the power at. So I mean, I have him winning by KO or TKO, and only because I like Derek Lewis. I think Derek Lewis could probably do the same to him, but I mean, he's talking about how he only trained 30 minutes at a time, a training session, when he was talking to Michael Bisping a couple of weeks back, when he remarked that he made that comment about wanting to fight Greg Hardy. So I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think it's easy to pick Ngannou if you remember what the man is capable of.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a KO, obviously, either direction. My argument, I guess, for Lewis would be that he's had some bouts that have gone a few rounds. So he showed that he can take a little bit of a beating and come back and still knock somebody out. And whether it's a gas tank or it's just enough heart to be able to keep going, he's proven that he can do it. So
yeah, he's also critical of that too. He doesn't like he wants to finish. He wants an early finish. He's very critical. He kind of beats himself up for those fights that even if he wins by decision, if you see his post-fight interviews and even with the way he spoke about it on Helwani's show Monday, he doesn't like winning that way. He actually said if he wins by decision, then he shouldn't be pushed up to title contention. That he should probably fight like other guys that are lower.
Yeah, he's a heavyweight. He's one of the big hitting heavyweights. That's when you get past Stipe, and basically once you get past Stipe, that's when you start getting into. I mean, you got Verdun and some of the grapplers. Volkov, I think, is going to be someone to mess with in the next couple of years. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to be an exciting card. Michael Kaseya, Anthony Pettis, as long as McGregor doesn't come attacking with a dolly again.
I mean, he's in negotiations for his plea, so I don't think he'll be doing anything. He's got to be a good boy now.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
July 26th, we'll see about that.
And then the K1 Glory legend, kickboxing legend, Gokhan Saki against Khalil Roundtree.
Yeah, that's a fight I'm actually excited to watch.
I think that's going to be a barn burner.
Yeah.
The whole main card, all the fights we just mentioned. I mean, it's hard to pick which one could be fight of the night, or fight of the year for that matter. They all have potential just to be back and forth wars. The Pettis Kaseya fight, I'd almost like to see that hit the ground. It would be a cool. with all these fights on this card, there's some stand-up battles. That would be a cool one to see hit the ground and see some of their groundwork with each other.
You mean Chiesa, right? Michael Chiesa?
Chiesa. You're in Jersey. I'm not sure how it's said.
Is it a sub or a hoagie?
Yeah, so for fans, as we're wrapping up here, Bellator 201 this Friday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern time on the Paramount Network.
Wait, we got to give some love to. I'm going to be covering the PFL 3 event in Washington, D.C., July 5th. Just next week, we're probably not going to have an episode because I'll be on the road and you're going to be going to 226. So just for folks listening so that they know. But yeah, that's going to be on July 5th, NBC Sports at 9. But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. So we have Bellator this Friday night. Like you said, Professional Fighters League, PFL, next Thursday night on NBC Sports. I believe that's also a 9 p.m. Eastern start time. And with the prelims on YouTube or on their Facebook page. And then the following night is the Ultimate Fighter 27 finale on Fox Sports 1, I believe. And then the big pay-per-view comes up on July 7th, the Miocic Cormier UFC 226. So we definitely got a full, 8-9 days of action ahead of us. And
way to celebrate this country's birthday.
There you go. Yeah, I couldn't hold off. 7 consecutive years of fight week.
Yeah,
I had to go for my 8th, so I saw the
You're
card.
lucky, man. I'm missing. This is my second I'm missing now. Oh, I don't know if you're lucky. Maybe I'm lucky. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see on July 7th.
The only thing that's for sure is it's going to be really hot in Vegas. So
it's going to be hot in DC too. It's always hot as balls in DC.
I guess I can walk around with a beer though in where I'm going.
Yeah, no, I'll probably get mugged with leaving George Washington University.
All right. Well, as usual, fans can follow us on @CombatHour on Twitter, and myself @MMAHawk21 on Twitter and Instagram. And you can follow Ed @Carbazal on Twitter. Ed, fun talking to you. Like you said, no show next week with the travel, but we'll be back the following week, which will be, I believe it's July 12th. So we got a guest lined up for that show, and look forward to talking to you over the next few days about all these big fights.
Yes, sir. And maybe we can squeeze one in the end of that weekend, depending on where we're at, or if I don't get mugged. But real quick, folks, subscribe iTunes, Overcast, Google Podcasts, Breaker, Radio Public. The podcast is everywhere now. And again, if you want T-shirts, Matt, show them your T-shirt. Hit them up if you want them titties. Hit Matt up on Twitter at his handle or at the Combat Hour handle. Thank you for listening. Much appreciated.